For as long as video games have been a thing, there's been competition within the medium. This has manifested itself in different ways, such as aggressive marketing campaigns.
Get Joe Montana free, Pat Riley free, Buster Douglas free, Super Monaco GP free, or Collins free. What Nintendo don't.
Undercutting prices, and developing killer apps. Games that were only available on a specific platform, forcing the consumer to pick up that console to experience that game. If you happen to be a business on the up and up, attempting to draw in a large audience of people, especially over that other guy, one of the best ways to do this is to make your brand appealing. There's a reason why Mickey Mouse is Disney's mascot, Warner Brothers has Bugs Bunny, and Twitter has that adorable little blue bird. Oh yeah. Indeed, history has shown that it's a quick, easy PR win to give your company a sometimes cartoony, sometimes cute, anthropomorphic character to face the world with. This strategy has not gone unnoticed by game developers and publishers. From the inception of the medium as we know it, these mascots have cropped up here and there. Pac-Man is a particularly useful example, barely anything more than a yellow pizza missing a slice on screen, yet here he is presented much more amiably with a recognisable face, arms and legs, when shown for marketing purposes. Of course, and altogether now, Video games have come a long way since Pac-Man, including Pac-Man, and there are countless more examples to choose from. Moving forward and returning to the whole Sega vs Nintendo thing, certainly the most vicious rivalry of the 1990s was between Super Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog, perhaps the two most successful, or at least recognisable, gaming mascots of all time. They're both still going strong today, though admittedly one has gone through a significantly bumpier road than the other. It was around this time that the concept of the gaming mascots exploded, as everyone saw the success of Mario and Sonic and wanted their piece of the pie. For mostly better and occasionally worse, this was the age of platformers, each featuring their own original characters vying for the top spot. This was a big part of the reason why I consider this era such a golden age. So many games coming out over this period had so much charm, style and character to match the weird, wacky and wonderful mascots that were being designed. Look no further than Ratchet and Clank, Banjo and Kazooie, Sly Cooper, Croc, Klonoa, Rayman, Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon, to name just a few. This brings us to the subject of our review today. Releasing in North America on December 4th, 2001 and in PAL regions on December 7th, 2001, Jak and Daxter, The Precursor Legacy was Naughty Dog's first platforming entry on the PlayStation 2, following their incredibly successful Crash Bandicoot trilogy on the PlayStation 1. Jak and Daxter, The Precursor Legacy is a classic mascot platforming game, featuring the titular characters of the silent protagonist Jak and zany, mouth-running sidekick, half weasel, half otter, Daxter. Taking place across a vast, colourful world of multiple different biomes and littered with dozens of different spooky monsters and collectibles, Jak and Daxter was perhaps the first great adventure I took part in within the interactive medium, being my second ever video game, after SSX. As such, I'm tremendously excited to be revisiting it for this video today. Throughout this review, I'll be examining whether Naughty Dog was able to recapture that platforming magic of their earlier works, and whether Jak and Daxter, The Precursor Legacy, still holds up to this day. With all that said, pack your power cells, count your precursor orbs, and mind the dark eco as we take a trip down memory lane on our A-Grav Zoomer. We're introduced to the world and story of Jak and Daxter, The Precursor Legacy, in the form of a rather lengthy cutscene. In the spirit of mischief, Jak and the suspiciously normal-looking Daxter steal a boat and make their way to the mysterious Misty Island, just for kicks, I suppose. After almost stumbling into a particularly evil meeting featuring some very shadowy characters and their army of nasty-looking minions, the boys are able to get away, presumably undetected. As for these two unsavoury characters, don't you worry, they'll become important later. In the meantime, whilst continuing to loiter around Misty Island next to a large gaping hole filled with the odious and probably deadly Dark Eco, the boys get jumped by one of the mysterious duo's minions, a lurker. In the scuffle, the lurker is defeated, but Daxter is knocked into the bubbling pit. He's promptly spat out, and he's not going to be allowed on the furniture anytime soon. Returning to their hometown of Sandover Village, the green sage Samos, a wise man well versed in the ways of green eco, informs Daxter that his current predicament is beyond his capabilities, and points him in the direction of the almighty sage Gol Acheron, a supposed expert in the perils of dark eco. One quick tutorial and an establishing shot of the way to go later, and Jak and Daxter are unleashed upon the player's control and the adventure begins. Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy is about a journey. In actuality, it's about two journeys, happening side by side, one in a more tangible manner and the other more abstractly. On the one hand, we have Jak, the character that you, the player, will be directly controlling throughout the game. Jak is a silent protagonist, a bit of a blank slate of a character, a conveniently empty vessel for the player to implant their own personality, reactions and biases onto. At least he is in the first game anyway.
I've been crawling around in this place, risking my tail, literally, to save you. I've been looking for you for 2 years. Say something, just this once.
I'm gonna kill Praxis!
Jak undertakes the physical portion of the quest, braving the dangers of this wild, brave new world and all the lurkers in it. All the while Daxter, the Otzel that sits upon his shoulder, goes upon a journey of his own. Daxter goes upon a journey of realization, of discovering selflessness for the sake of the greater good, but more on that in a little bit. In the meantime, let's focus on the world that Jak and Daxter takes place in. It's a diverse land littered with hyper-advanced technology of a bygone era. The precursors in this first entry remain largely a mystery, but their mark is still very much apparent, and pretty much every location in the game features some kind of holdover from this mysterious civilization. The Lost Precursor City in particular being an excellent example of the remains of this ancient society. However, precursor technology is far from the only curiosity present in Jak and Daxter. I'm of course talking about eco. There are 5 kinds of this eco, and each has its own purpose that I'll be delving into in the next section. To summarise here, however, green eco focuses on healing, red on strength, blue on speed, and yellow on throwing fireballs. Dark eco is that nasty stuff that Daxter fell into earlier, and really should be avoided at all costs. Each individual kind of eco is studied by a certain sage, and these sages' huts feature as the major hub and fast travel areas across the adventure. Upon reaching the third main hub in the game, Volcanic Crater, a sinister twist happens. It's revealed that the totally evil bloke you stumbled upon earlier during your foray into Misty Island was none other than Gol Acheron himself, as well as his similarly evil sister Maya. Due to their extensive research and time exposed to dark eco, they have become corrupted and seek to cleanse the world with dark eco, forcing it to be reborn in their image. As you can imagine, this is naturally a teeny tiny bit of a conflict of interest for Daxter.
Wait a minute! That was Gol? The same Gol who's supposed to change me back? Gol is the guy trying to kill us? I'm doomed.
Indeed. Going into the final act of the game, the focus changes. Instead of simply traversing the world, now you must save it from a dark, gloopy death. Upon reaching the end of your journey and coming upon the fearsome, seemingly bottomless citadel of Gol and Maya, the battle for the world begins. The villains pilot some kind of precursor Jaeger, whilst Jak and Daxter make use of the very conveniently placed sources of eco to battle the curious robot. In the final moments, Jak is able to forge White Eco, an all-powerful energy source which annihilates Gol, Maya, and the gigantic precursor robot in one strike. In destroying Gol Acheron, Daxter chooses to save the world over simply focusing on trying to change himself back.
White Eco! That could be the stuff to change me back! Or it might stop that robot. Stay fuzzy, save the world. Choices. Okay, fine. We'll save the world, but do it quickly before I change my mind.
This, by and large, covers the extent of the plot in Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy. I was always fascinated by the world and story as a child, taking my first few steps into the gaming medium, and I'm happy to say that I think it still holds up today. It's a simple, fitting introduction to the series with enough world building to build intrigue whilst leaving a lot to be filled in over subsequent entries. Though I gotta say that if you didn't know there was a sequel, man, this game leaves you hanging. I'll let Daxter explain it to you in some bonus DVD commentary.
And then we found it! After working our butts off in this adventure, after collecting every stinking power cell in this entire crazy world, clawing my paws to the bone, we got, that's right, drum roll please, absolutely nothing! Zippo nada!
Wow!
What is it?
It's so beautiful.
By the Precursors.
Hello? That sucked! That sucked! I'll send you my therapy bill and a receipt for the broken game controller.
Of course, first and foremost, Jak and Daxter The Precursor Legacy is a 3D platforming game. Much like any other games of its type, it's also about finding and acquiring lots of different fun collectibles. First up, and most importantly, we have the power cells. Power cells are Jak and Daxter's equivalent to Super Mario Sunshine Shine sprites and Banjo and Kazooie's jigsaw pieces. To travel further north and towards your ultimate goal, you'll need to collect these power cells to power your A-Grav Zoomer, a very handy and very cool form of transportation maintained by Kira, a skilled mechanic and Samus's daughter. These A-Grav Zoomer segments neatly break up the world into 4 main hub areas. Those are Sandover Village, Rock Village, Volcanic Crater, and the outer walls of Golan Maya's Citadel. Power cells are acquired through a variety of different tasks across each of Jak and Daxter's many levels. These range from fun minigames like fishing, which was surprisingly harder than I remembered,
How could this happen to me?
to chasing seagulls or felling bosses. On the continued theme of collecting, nearly every hub area has at least one interested party who wishes to trade you a power cell for collecting a certain amount of precursor orbs, these curious egg-shaped collectibles found everywhere which seem to function in this world as some kind of currency. Additionally, Kira had deployed several drones, known as scoutflies, to each area to get the lay of the land, only for them to be captured and boxed up by the local lurkers. Freeing all 7 of these flies per area will also yield you yet another precious power cell. All in all, there are 101 power cells to collect over the course of Jak and Daxter, though you can beat the game earning sufficiently fewer than that, and finding and unlocking each one always provides a nice little dopamine rush, a small, tangible sense of progress which keeps you pressing on in the hopes of finding more and more. Of course, a mosey through the various levels of Jak and Daxter is not akin to a simple walk in the park. Every zone and level within the game has its own theme, tricks and traps to keep you on your toes. In Sentinel Beach, fearsome snake-like lurkers burst from the sands to nip at your heels and face, all the while bombs rain down on you from above. Atop the aptly and imaginatively named Snowy Mountain, the slippery, icy terrain makes warding off the tiny, hoppy little menaces all that more of a pain in the neck. In the doom and gloom of Spider Cave, only the frequently and generously placed vents of Yellow Eco will enable you to shoot away the nasty beasties that spring from the walls. I'll touch upon some of the individual levels in Jak and Daxter a bit later, but I do just want to point out that the world is almost entirely seamless, quite a fantastic feat for 2001, and certainly a bit of a technological step up from the strict stage-based progression of games like Crash Bandicoot or Spyro the Dragon. Undertaking each step across the world yourself, as opposed to simply selecting the next level on an overworld, makes the journey just that little bit more immersive, in my opinion. It's the same reason why Dragon Quest VIII is probably my favourite game within that series. Fortunately, despite the many different trials and obstacles that you'll come across, Jak is well equipped with an arsenal of different moves to fend off the various lurkers and ultimately save the world. Being the action platformer what it is, a lot of the time hindrances can be overcome simply by jumping over or around them. and Jak is well versed in the forgotten fine art of double jumping, allowing for even greater control and precision in the air. Additionally, a roll jump will enable you to cross great distances, and a crouch jump great heights. Unlike many of his peers, Jak also doesn't seem to have many reservations about rolling up his sleeves and throwing a punch every once in a while, which certainly comes in handy considering just how extensively the lands are littered with monsters. A simple tap of the square button sends Jak flying forward with his fists of fury, whilst Circle sets off a spin attack. These moves can be comboed together too, with certain variants of these abilities, like the uppercut and downward strike, available upon jumping up or touching down. I just want to give a special mention to the spin attack. It is more of a use than simply being an offensive maneuver. Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy, does actually have fall damage. But you'd never know it, as a cheeky little spin attack in the air right at the last moment negates and defies the laws of physics, killing all momentum and staving off gravity for another day. Returning to a point that I brought up and shelved earlier, a notable portion of your time traversing the world will be aided by the various kinds of eco that are found scattered practically everywhere. First up, green eco is perhaps the simplest and functions exclusively as your healing items. At max health, you can take 3 hits, the 4th will kill you. Each portion of health is comprised of one giant blob of green eco, or 50 mini blobs, which can be collected from the various treasure chests scattered around, or the lurkers you kill. Next up, we have blue eco. Blue eco is also encountered very early on, in the tutorial level even, and focuses mainly on speeding things up. Upon collecting blue eco, Jak moves faster, and items and collectibles will literally leap from the ground and come flying towards you. Blue eco is also sometimes necessary to progress through an area, as you'll come across several kinds of precursor technology, such as locked doors, fallen bridges, or launch pads, which can only be activated when the user is channeling blue eco. Red eco and yellow eco tend to be a bit more circumstance specific and generally appear less often. Starting with the former, red eco is all about strength, and using that will enable you to knock out certain monsters faster, taking only 1 hit instead of 2. I believe it also increases your range a little. Yellow eco lets you throw projectiles, cropping up frequently in the swamps, the spider cave, as well as the battle against the fearsome claw. Finding these various power-ups generously scattered across the land does wonders in mixing up the gameplay. Unfortunately, eco as a game mechanic was mostly dropped in the series' subsequent entries, so they certainly should be enjoyed here. Speaking of its sequels, Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy is unique in another important aspect too. Perhaps one of the most appealing things about Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy, especially considering its sequels, is the vast, diverse and colourful world in which it takes place. Jak 2 Renegade had the dystopian Haven City, and Jak 3 had the Wasteland. Both of these places work for the story that they told, but there's something that's just so wondrous and magical about the world in this original game. As a quick aside, I was absolutely in love with the physical world map that came with my PS2 copy of Jak and Daxter as a kid. It really captured my imagination. Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy is a natural evolution of its platforming peers. Many other games like it would have the standard jungle world, beach world, snow world, lava world, and so on, accessed via some kind of hub world like Super Mario 64 or Banjo-Kazooie, but with Jak and Daxter, it's practically all seamlessly integrated. Even the bizarre changes in terrain over a relatively short distance feel organic and natural. The peaceful, green, temperate nature of Sandover Village provides a suitable hub for the sands of Sentinel Beach and the dense foliage of Forbidden Jungle. Misty Island is certainly very different, yet is still only a short boat ride away. Upon risking all crossing the fearsome Fire Canyon, Rock Village presents a sufficiently dour location, weathered by both constant rain and fiery boulders. Rock Village seems to be particularly rich in precursor technology, featuring both the Lost Precursor City as well as the Precursor Basin just around the corner. The Precursor Basin is like the Thunderdome of Rage. There's a reason why you've barely seen it in this review. It's like literally my least favourite level. I mean, I can't, like, look at these rings. Where are you supposed to go? How would you know that was there? How would you know that was there? And they're trying to catch those lurkers. I mean, come on, man. I mean, herding the moles is one thing. At least they sort of went where you wanted them to go. But what is this? Why? And why do they bring these rings back in Jak 2? Boggy Swamp is the final location to be found around Rock Village, and honestly, I don't think it would make the travel brochure. Volcanic Crater is certainly the most uninhabitable of the 4 major hubs, yet still manages to house the Red Sage when he's there, as well as this pair of rather gormless miners forever attempting to knock down this crystal that will simply never fall. Because I'm pretty sure that's where a forgotten or lost level is. More on that at the end of the show. From Volcanic Crater, you have 2 options. Do you delve too greedily and deeply into the grim darkness of the Spider Cave, or head on up to Snowy Mountain, a frankly beautiful area caked in snow at the very top of the world? Visually, despite its age, every environment in Jak and Daxter The Precursor Legacy is striking and succeeds in conveying the mood it happens to be going for at that moment. Spider Cave is dark and dreary. Sentinel Beach is bright and whimsical, despite the lurkers, whereas the Lost Precursor City is claustrophobic, mysterious, and yet a lot of fun, courtesy of its sliding segments. What also helps the overall presentation and immersion is the fact that the game has a full day-night cycle, making it feel just a little bit more real. Just like the visuals, the sound design is great too. The voice acting is terrific across the board, with Daxter, voiced by Max Casella, being a particular highlight.
Lurker presence in the spider caves.
Great. Sounds like a real cheery place. Let me guess. There are spiders in the spider caves, right?
Of course there are spiders in spider caves.
Golacaron sounds like he smokes 50 a day.
Continue your search for artifacts, amigo.
Whilst this fisherman here sounds like he hopped on his boat and rowed over straight from the West Country.
The ocean took a bite out of me fishing rig. And now they're gobbling up me catch.
Speaking of traversing the oceans, this allows me to neatly segue into talking about the sound effects. Jak and Daxter has some fantastic ones, but there's absolutely one example I must highlight. Could there be a noise any more likely to send any young child into a panicked frenzy than this one? Seriously, the lurker shark terrified me as a kid, and I'm sure it did you too. Still sends my heart racing if I'm honest. Thankfully, it's not just the villains who get to enjoy such auditory eloquence. Each punch, kick and jump has a sensory impact, paired with the DualShock's vibration, providing some fantastic feedback to the player. Trudging through snow is very satisfying, as is wading through deep water, whilst the whirring engine of the A-Grav Zoomer serves as a form of comfort as you risk life and limb, traversing the treacherous areas of Fire Canyon and Lava Tube. One final point I want to make is to shout out the sheer quality of animation featured in the game, particularly focusing on our protagonists. Jak and Daxter's movement is fluid and adaptable to the world around them. Speaking of wading through snow or deep water, Jak's movement animation will change when he's making his way through these treacherous environments. What Jak's personality lacks in dialogue is made up for in his very animated nature. Daxter is also particularly noteworthy, always clinging to Jak's shoulders for dear life. You'll note that he always seems to take a second to regain his posture after Jak throws some kind of punch. It's little things like this that make you realise just how polished this game was, especially when you consider just how long ago this game came out. Jak and Daxter The Precursor Legacy is one of those games that I not only remember fondly from my childhood, but continue to love and appreciate into my adult years. Nostalgia is a powerful drug, and it's certainly one we've talked about several times on this channel, but sometimes, just sometimes, those rose-tinted goggles turn out to just be empty frames, and how you remember something is exactly how it is. I've been very fortunate in that in my rediscovery of many of my childhood games, I can't think of many which have aged that poorly at all. Now I want to hear from you guys. Please let me know down below if there are any games from your childhood that you still return to today. Thankfully, due to several re-releases across the various iterations of PlayStation over the years, and through the work of some very dedicated members of the fanbase, the Jak and Daxter series continues to live on in some form to this day. One user on this very platform that I have to highlight is Lumina Light, who managed to uncover a whole unused level within the Precursor Legacy, labelled within the game's files as Yosemite. I'd thoroughly recommend that you check out this video, as well as some of the other work they've done in restoring Yosemite. It's a fascinating watch, and it can't make me help but wonder what might have been. Does the presence of Yosemite deep within the game's files explain why the volcanic crater hub had only 2 levels attached, whilst Sandover Village and Rock Village had 3? Is this why you can get a whopping 4 power cells from the miners through Precursor Orb donation, whilst the maximum you can gain from any other NPC is 2? Would this forgotten switch have activated the red eco vents? It seems likely considering their prevalence atop Snowy Mountain. Isn't there something beautifully poetic about hidden, unused stages being rediscovered in an old game which itself centres around ancient, unearthed technology? Perhaps the real Precursor Legacy were the levels we lost along the way. I'm gonna be honest, I don't entirely know what that means, but what I do know is that it's true. I'm TheUtterChrisp, and please do consider joining me next time when I'll be talking about a different game. Reaching the Having a Mosey Season 2 finale at last, we'll be examining just how much trouble can be caused by a dingy, damp little empty lot in the quiet back alleys of Tokyo.